Alex Beekley, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Hi, thank you, John, for inviting me today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have the chance to chat. And today we're going to have an opportunity to discuss qualities of exceptional leadership and what goes into effectively leading a team or an organization. As we get started, I wanted to share Alex's bio with the listeners. Alex Beekley is the co-founder of a website development and content creation company, unleashbp. Alexandra, or Alex, works with local private practice lawyers and doctors to ensure they have an online presence needed in the new dominating digital world. Alex has a passion for serving others and a place in her heart for local small businesses. Through her Generation Z team, Alex and her co-founder, Aaron Pena, are excited to help these older-based businesses gain the knowledge needed to bridge the gap between the generations. Alex has also produced a podcast and a YouTube channel called Entrepreneurship Decoded, where she shares the stories of successful entrepreneurs and inspiring business leaders and how they got started, the struggles and challenges they faced, and what it took for them to find their passions and their successes. So again, thank you and welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Anything else you would like to add by way of background before you dive on in and get started?
Oh yeah, that was basically me. If anyone listening doesn't know, I am 18 years old and I will be going to college this fall, but I still love everything about business, and I think COVID was more of a blessing for me specifically just because my family has been safe and I've been able to start multiple businesses during this time to really help like local businesses and other people just thrive at this time. So
very cool. And I would love to hear a little bit more about that. You're a young entrepreneur, you're seizing the opportunities presented by the pandemic. You're launching these different initiatives, websites, and businesses, all while presumably finishing up high school, launching on into college. Tell me a little bit more about that and just your background and how you got started in entrepreneurial endeavors.
Yeah, of course. I never knew that I loved business until I was probably about 11 years old when my mom took me to door knocking, and at that time I was a very shy kid. So at that time, both my parents had lost their own businesses in 2008, and then a few years later they got new jobs, and my mom was a salesperson. So she would go out and tell me all the things that she would sell, but she loved telling me about the relationships she built with people. So that was always something I remembered, but I was like, I'm never going to do that. So one day she came home and she said I was going to go with her. And, after many times of protestation, I said no. But she took me with her. And for like 2 weeks, I stood behind her just terrified. But over time, I learned what she was really talking about building relationships and really just talking to people. And it wasn't really about the sale. It was about just that relationship she built. So after those 2 weeks, I was kind of like, oh, this is really cool. But the kind of traumatic experience happened after that 2 weeks when we drove to the next neighborhood. I got out of the car with all the stuff and noticed that my mom didn't get out the car. And after a little while, she deadpan stared me in the face, locked the door from the inside, and said, "You're doing it by yourself today." So after, 15, 20 minutes of, again, just not wanting to do it, I took that step, but I was like, the only way I'm going to get home is if I just go out and do this. So the first house I went to, I knocked on the door, just literally butterflies in my stomach. And I waited, and I thought maybe I would be lucky because I didn't hear any walking footsteps. But then this big humongous man opened the door. I was absolutely terrified because at that time I was like 4'5", just a small, tiny person. And then I took a deep breath, said the pitch really fast, really just, it wasn't the best thing ever. But then the guy knelt down and looked me in the face and said, "I don't want to buy anything from you, but just because you are standing here and doing this, you're going to be successful one day." So I think that's what launched my love for just sales and helping people, because it's not about me. It's not about you or if you were doing this as well, but it's about the people you'll meet and the lives that you'll change. So that's kind of the pivotal moment that left me when I was just 11 years old. But after that, I spent 2 years, 2 hours every single day memorizing that pitch, or really learning how to be a salesperson. And then from that, just different programs I went into for business. And in this last year, when we went lockdown in March, I just took the initiative to, learn how to start a business myself, because most of the resources we have nowadays are online. And, I grew up with that technology, and I realized, our company has only been in business for like a week with unleashbp, but it's my sixth company. And all the other ones were complete failures, but I learned so much with it. So now I feel confident with this one, and me and my partner are really excited to just help those local businesses who really don't have that much knowledge about having an online presence. So, like I said, being Generation Z, he and I both know and grew up with this technology. So we just want to help others who didn't grow up with it and need that extra push to get more clients that are online that want their help. So that's kind of my background that I've had, and about the main story that went with it.
Very cool, very cool. And tell me just a little bit more about Unleash BP.
So Unleash BP, it means unleash buying power, but my partner and I both liked it because it's the first initial of our last name, B and P. So we just thought that was kind of a cool thing. But so we're trying to unleash the buying power of these companies that we're starting niche with the, at least local. He and I are working remotely together. He's in Seattle. He's moving here to Utah pretty soon, but we're still working with his local community there in Seattle for the private owned lawyers and doctors, like chiropractors, those types of businesses, because we found that those businesses there's a ton of them, but a lot of them have a hard time with that competition, especially online. So we want to give them their own edge with a different type of website, and a way for other people to just really connect with them. And we are working with with older businesses as well, because we found that, like baby boomer based owned businesses, they're the ones that have the largest gap with technology and the lack thereof. So that's why we wanted to help them. And that's why kind of our slogan is innovating digital Zoomer business. So Generation Z and baby boomer, that's kind of the word that we use with that. But we're excited to just provide that extra website design. So we're building websites for those businesses. And then we're also doing extra services like content creation, copywriting, and then any social media help that they may need. And we can also provide them services where we keep their website updated each month with just a small fee with it. And that way they're able to just keep up with the times, and we're able to help them that way. And they can just worry about their business and how to keep that going, especially now with everything going on. So.
Excellent, excellent. And I really applaud you for the initiative that you've taken. You say you've started 6 businesses now, Unleash BP being your 6th, and even at just such a young age, and being able to see a gap in the market and a niche that you can fill, and taking the initiative to start up a business and to start drumming up clients and doing that work. That's really awesome. And like that man, during your sales pitch when you were 11 said, I think that speaks highly of your potential, as you move forward into your career. I also like how you haven't allowed the failures to get you down, because a lot of entrepreneurial endeavors don't work. They don't take off despite, the good idea. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And so one of the things you need to have as you're an entrepreneur and starting businesses is just to have a thick skin and to have a growth mindset, and to recognize and realize that, this one may not work, but I'm going to learn from it. And then I'm going to take those learnings, and I'm going to feed that into my next initiative, or my next project, my next company. And it sounds like that's exactly what you've done. And so, that's what we need. We need resilient people that are willing to learn as they go, and in an iterative process, develop their own thinking, their own expertise, their own leadership capabilities. And you seem to embody a lot of those characteristics. So that's really, really awesome. One of the things that we wanted to focus on today was really just the idea of exceptional leadership. And I think many of the characteristics that I just kind of mentioned, as I was doing my own little recap sum up of what I heard you say during your sharing of your story, I think those things apply into effective leadership as well. But I'm curious to hear your take. I know this is something you think a lot about. What are the qualities of exceptional leaders, and what would that look like when you're trying to go in and lead your own organization or lead your own team?
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone still needs to grow, having that growth mindset to learn about how to become a great leader. So with the couple of years of experience I've had with leadership, a year ago I was in a business specific leadership program, and we would learn about leadership, learn how that went. But it's not until you're in that role and being that the one person that everyone looks up to, everyone has to get information from. That's not it doesn't It takes a while for you to actually know what it takes until you're in that role. So, I mean, I probably didn't learn much about it until I was in that role. I had to basically build and lead this project. We did a major diversity dinner here in Utah at the beginning of January. And for 6 months, me and my team, I was actually assigned a team, and I was assigned the leader, and I had no idea what I was doing. But that's all that it takes, is just the experience of going out there. So being a great leader really takes people. I think the first step is to really realize their strengths and weaknesses and how they can use that to grow their knowledge and then grow their team based on the types of weaknesses that they have. So if they have a great strength, say in website development, but they really suck at talking to people, then you would need a couple people on your team for the sales part of it, for the marketing part of it. And that's how you really grow a great team, is to realize that you probably suck at a lot of things, and then the people on your team can really help build you up that way, or help build up the team with those different expert skills that they have that you don't. So I think that's the first thing you should do. And then the next, you realize that being a leader is usually the person that doesn't want to be the leader. It's a person that sees their team, their employees, their group as the momentum, the movement that it takes to really get to the end result. So with all of that, I think when you realize that you are the leader, but you're, instead of being a person who pushes people and the person who makes people do things, you're going to be the person who is along with them in the dirt, in the grind of it all. And that's how you'll really realize that it's not just you that is the high pedestal person, but it really takes a team to really do that. So those are the kind of the main things that I've learned just from my couple of years of learning business specifically and being in that leadership role, is that you need to realize your strengths and weaknesses, and then also you realize that it takes other people to really make a result happen, to make a goal achievable, and to really grow your knowledge around different aspects that you might have not known before. So that's kind of the key things that I usually have learned from leadership, and that's what I think it really takes to be a great leader.
Yeah, well, I love, there's a lot in what you just said that I love. And it's connected to what you were just saying, but also going back to your story about how you learned about sales from your mother. One of the key components to effective and exceptional leadership is recognizing the role of relationships, right? That you don't accomplish anything without the people around you. And so sometimes people have this false notion that an effective leader is the person who's very authoritative, who can bark orders at people and get other people to do the stuff. But they see people not as people, but they see people as like their tools to get things done. And that's a fundamentally different kind of a mindset than trying to recognize the innate humanity of the people in your organization, valuing them as individuals, recognizing the strengths that they bring to the table, maximizing, utilizing those strengths and maximizing their potential as a leader, and seeing your role as a leader not to be dictatorial, not to constantly be directing people, but rather to empower people, to help people recognize and see their own potential, help them recognize and see their own strengths, and then have that growth mindset to be able to continually develop into those strengths and lean in to the learning opportunities that they're going to have as they go throughout their career and as they work with you and in the organization. That's a fundamentally different kind of a mindset about leadership than perhaps the old traditional managerial approach, or the old kind of industrial revolution, assembly line type of a traditional mindset. And we've seen that shift, in organizations over the last 30 years, but leaders haven't necessarily had that mindset shift. And so we still see a lot of leaders who lead the way they were led, rather than leading in the more effective ways of empowerment and helping their people to be self-directed workers. And so, that's an ongoing challenge. It's something I kind of beat my head up against the wall regularly, because I see, so much potential in somebody, and then I see them doing these dysfunctional types of leadership behaviors that are they're just shooting themselves in the foot, and they don't even realize they're doing it, because they haven't taken the time to step back, to question what they've observed and what they've learned from past leaders, the examples of past leaders earlier in their career, and they just start to replicate. They start to mimic and imitate the approaches they've seen previously, even if they're not effective. So it's about relationships. It's about building trust. It's about recognizing the strengths of our people and building off of those strengths. Those are those key components that we constantly need to be focusing on. And if we ever find ourselves retreating back to the kind of those older notions of distrust and assuming that my employees are going to try to do the bare minimum and get away with things and cut corners, so I need to be watching over them every second of every day. We need to get away from that mindset, constantly forcing ourselves to, because I think sometimes human nature pushes us that direction.
Yeah, I love how you said empowerment too, because that's really something a leader should focus on: empowering people and giving them that control to do what they are doing best. So I think how you described that was perfect, and how a lot of people, that's probably why they hate their job, is because their leader is or the so-called leader is actually their boss, and is just controlling them, micromanaging what they're doing, and they can't have that freedom and their creativity to really explore and grow in their own area. So I think what you said was really accurate. That's probably why people really hate their jobs, just because they don't have that leader figure, and it's not really their fault. Like you said, all these people grew up or around that environment of people who are that authoritative dictator boss person, instead of an actual leader who wants other people to grow and learn and really see their potential in what they can do. So I think that's really powerful when a leader really acknowledges that and can really pull through and do that for the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we consider different leadership styles, and recognizing that people have different personalities and leaders have their own strengths, and so some might be very naturally charismatic, some might be really outgoing and extroverted and have a really easy, time of, making friends and building relationships and those sorts of things. Others might be a little quieter. They might be more of the sage kind of listening type. They may not be as extroverted, and those relationships may not come as naturally or as easily, but those types of leaders often develop deeper relationships. And so, just recognizing who you are as a leader, what your style is, what your personality is, how that feeds into your strengths, and then leveraging those strengths to be an authentic leader, I think is really vital, because one thing that you just don't want to do is try to be something that you're not. There's no one right way to lead people, in terms of style. Of course, building relationships, developing trust, being open and transparent, and empowering your people. I mean, these are general principles that I think apply across style, across personality. Putting those aside, the research shows there's no one right way of leading people. And you can have a very introverted, quiet person who's a very powerful leader, and you can have a very extroverted person who's a very powerful leader, and everything in between. So I think it's important for us to be authentic, and not try to be something we're not, because people can see through that. And if we're trying to be something that doesn't fit with who we are, then people won't trust us, and then it'll be that much harder to lead. Something else I thought we could talk about for just a minute is, we've talked about these qualities of exceptional leaders, being effective in organizations. But what does that mean when you see, when I'm an employee and I'm working for a boss that I love, that I really respect, that I look toward, not just in terms of knowing what to do in my work, but as a potential mentor, as a someone who is wise and can show me a path forward. What does that do for the organization when we have leaders like that versus what happens to organizations when we have those more micromanaging types of leaders, those types of leaders that are kind of the more old school approach, to just dictating rather than empowering.
Yeah, I think when that happens, I actually have some like realistic real life examples. So both my parents work for different roofing companies. The one with the company is actually probably going to go bankrupt in like a month or so, just because that the boss, the CEO, is micromanaging everyone. And ever since they went into COVID, they have like 4 meetings a week. They have all this stuff to make sure everyone's doing what they're doing. And I just kind of stand back and watch it all happen. And it's crazy how you can really see the difference between that and then like my mom's company, where they have so many people, so many salespeople, and it's like they can do what they want. They have different competitions to really boost each other's morale. They have like these coaching calls that they think the people need it to either like if they've been affected by COVID or if anything, they need support for anything, that's where they go. So it's amazing to see that drastic gap between those two companies. But like you said, I think when you give your employees that protection, you give them trust, you show them how to, become like their own leaders and give them that empowerment in the workplace, that will provide them more, motivation to keep going, to not just work for you, but to see what they can do to push and to keep growing the company. And if you've like multiple employees that feel the same way, your company's going to grow exponentially. It's going to skyrocket, and it's amazing to see those results. But then on the other hand, if you have the micromanaging and then you feel like controlled and you don't have any place you're just in a box almost, that's when, the company's going to stay where it is or it's going to fall, just because you can't let other people do it. And if you're micromanaging, I think that's at the point when the leader needs to step back and either have someone else take in the leadership position, or they need to learn how to trust their employees to take action and do the things that they're there for. Because being a CEO of a company, the transition from an entrepreneur to a CEO happens when you can let your employees do the jobs that you don't want to do anymore because they can do it better. So I think when you have a CEO and they're still micromanaging the details of the company, then that just means that the CEO doesn't trust its employees and it won't let them use their potential to grow the company that way. So I think when you have that mentor, the leader who really lets their employees do what they're meant to do and it kind of motivates them to keep going, that the company will grow exponentially. And you can hire more people, and then you can continue that process and just create a great environment, because that's what the synergy happens in an office, or nowadays it's kind of mostly Zoom or at home. But if you can still create that energy and environment that's really positive and really motivating, then anything can happen.
Yeah, I love that. Those are great flip side of the coin examples that you just shared with your parents' work. And I think we've all been there. We've seen that in different organizations, and some seem to get it and some don't. And you're right, there's a lot of research that shows the benefits and values of effective leaders. Most people leave their jobs because of having a bad boss. And so if you have someone you report to as a supervisor or manager who is not an inspiring leader, not an effective leader, then turnover rates are going to be higher. So good leadership leads to lower turnover. It leads to greater creativity, greater collaborations, more innovations, just generally speaking, better outcomes and results for the organization, as you mentioned. So for all those reasons, we need to strive to have good leaders. And unfortunately, organizations often are not particularly good at determining who would be best suited to be leaders. Something that was interesting that you said too, is that sometimes when you go from that entrepreneurial startup phase into growth phase, and then you move in, you're the CEO. A lot of leaders in that situation, they really struggle with letting things go. So it's not even a matter of thinking, oh, these are things I don't want to do anymore, I'm going to delegate and have other people do them. A lot of times those CEOs are still, because the reason they're micromanaging is because either they don't trust, or because they love, that's what they love to do, and that's what they're good at, and so that's what they want to keep doing, even though that's not the job of a CEO. And so we have to be able to grow with the types of work that we're doing, the types of growth of the company. And sometimes that means a founder isn't going to be a good CEO moving forward, and maybe they need to take on a technical role with the company, be on the board, but not be the chief executive officer. And so these are all the types of things we need to consider, and ultimately look for the capability, the leadership capabilities of our people, and recognize that just because someone's good at sales, just because they're a good coder, just because they're a financial wizard, that doesn't mean they're going to necessarily be a good leader. It doesn't mean they won't be, but it doesn't mean they will be either. And so just promoting people to those leadership roles because of past successes and other types of roles doesn't necessarily pan out. So it's a different set of skills, it's a different set of capabilities that we all have to carefully consider. Well, Alex, it has really been a pleasure talking with you today. We're about out of time, but before we close and part ways for the day, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your company, and perhaps reach out to you if they need any assistance.
Yeah, of course. So I'm young, so I have pretty much any social link you can think of. I'm the main business link, and you can also find my information about my company, unleashbp, is LinkedIn. So I use that all the time to connect with business leaders or other, like in my niche, the private practitioners. That's where I am. And then just my company, unleashbp.com. My partner and I, if you just go on the website, contact us, we will work with you to provide you a great website if that is what you need. And yeah, so LinkedIn, my company, and then if you want to follow me on Instagram, social links like Facebook, that's just my name, Alexandra Beekley. So hope that helps.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure talking with you today. I encourage my listeners to reach out to Alex, learn more about what she's doing, connect with her on LinkedIn. And I hope everyone stays healthy and safe, that you can all find meaning and purpose at work, and that everyone has a great week. Thank you.